My boyfriend started talking about our future the exact week he found out my dad owns a major construction company. So I sat him down and asked him 3 simple questions. I come from a family that's well known in our city. My grandfather built a construction company from nothing, and over 40 years it became one of the biggest in the region. My dad runs it. My uncle handles supply. My older brother Ludo runs project management. My cousin Ernie handles permits and zoning. When people hear my last name, they know what it means. I never used it. I work as a receptionist at a wellness center. I pay my own rent and buy my own groceries, and I never once asked my family for a shortcut. That's important to understand, because when I met Oren, I made sure he didn't know who my family was. I met him at a friend's cookout. We talked for 3 hours. He was charming and easy, and he told me he was trying to break into construction project management but couldn't get his foot in the door. I told him I understood. I didn't mention my family. We dated 2 months before he came to my parents for dinner. The house is nice but not flashy. What gave it away was the company truck in the driveway with our last name on the side. Oren saw it and asked if my dad worked for the company. I told him my dad owned it. He went quiet for 5 seconds and something in his face shifted. He looked at me like he was recalculating. Dinner was fine. My dad liked him. Ludo shook his hand and they talked timelines and building codes. After that night, Oren became a different boyfriend. More calls, planned dates, flowers on a random Tuesday. He told me he could see a future with me. I thought he was falling in love. He was falling in love with my last name. The first sign was when he asked me to set up a coffee with Ludo for professional advice. I did. 2 weeks later, he asked if my dad was hiring. I told him to check the company website like everyone else. He laughed and said it would be easier if I just put in a word. I told him no. He dropped it for a week, then asked again. 1 sentence, he said. Wouldn't be a big deal. I told him no again. That's when he started going around me. He showed up to my dad's office with coffee and introduced himself as my boyfriend. My dad's assistant told me the next day. He went to a job site where Ludo was supervising and brought lunch for the crew. Ludo called me that night and said Oren had been asking very specific questions about salary ranges and contracts and who made hiring decisions. Then Oren started showing up to family events without being invited. My cousin's birthday, even though I'd told him it was small. A Sunday lunch at my parents' when I wasn't even there because I was working. He went without me, sat at my family's table without me there and talked business with my dad for an hour. That's when I knew. He wasn't building a relationship with me. He was building a pipeline, and I was the gate. I went to my dad first, told him about the office visit, the job site, the questions to Ludo, the events. He listened, then said he'd already noticed. Oren had emailed him a full resume the week before, with a cover letter that mentioned me by name 3 times. My dad hadn't responded. I went to Ludo. Ludo said Oren had asked the previous week if there was a way to get brought on as a contractor. The company didn't work that way. Oren had asked if Ludo could make an exception. Ludo said no. I had everything I needed. I invited Oren over for dinner that Friday. I cooked the meal he'd asked me to make twice, the pasta with the sauce that takes 3 hours. I stood at the stove and stirred, and thought about how many times a person can cook for someone who's already gone. The candle on the table was new. The wine was open. Everything looked like a Friday night. He showed up on time with flowers. He kissed my cheek. We sat at the table and I let him eat. Halfway through, he told me he'd been thinking about our future. He thought it would be smart if he came to work for the company so we could build something together. He'd been putting in groundwork. My dad and brother already knew him. All I had to do was give the final push. I put my fork down and told him I had something to talk about. I told him my dad received his resume and that he got a job. His whole face lit up. He leaned forward like a kid on Christmas morning. He hadn't even asked what the job was. I had 3 questions planned, each designed to give him a chance to be honest. I told him the position was the mailroom, sorting deliveries, entry level, minimum starting pay. The excitement drained out of him like someone pulled a plug. The mailroom? I have a degree. I've been talking to your dad about project management. His voice cracked. I told him I knew about all of it. The talks with my dad, the visits to the office, the conversations with Ludo. I told him my dad wanted to see something, whether Oren was serious about working hard or just serious about a title. His jaw got tight. That's when I asked him question 1. If my family had no company, if my dad drove a regular truck and my brother worked at a hardware store, would you still be sitting at this table right now? The question hung between us. He took a breath, sat up straighter, put on a soft, sincere face. Of course, I'm here because I love you. But he said it to the plate, to the fork, and the napkin. He couldn't look at me. I always notice. So I asked him when he first told me he loved me. He rubbed the back of his neck. I don't remember. A while ago. I told him I remembered. 6 days after the dinner at my parents'. 6 days after he saw the truck. His shoulders pulled up toward his ears. He told me I was reading into things. People say I love you when they're ready. The timing doesn't mean anything. I picked up my phone. I had the texts ready, screenshotted days ago because I knew this moment was coming. I read the first one out loud, night before the family dinner. Had a good time tonight. You're cool. Talk soon. I let it sit. You're cool. Talk soon. Then I read the second. 2 days after the dinner. 2 days after he saw the truck and the house and met my dad and my brother. I read it word for word. I can't stop thinking about you. I think I'm falling for you. You're the one. The difference between those 2 messages was like night and day. One was a guy who thought I was fine. The other was a guy who just found out what my family was worth. His face went through about 4 different expressions in 3 seconds. I could see him doing math in his head, trying to figure out how to explain a complete personality change in 48 hours. He sat forward. So you've been building a case against me? I told him no. I just paid attention. That's all. I kept my voice level because I knew if I got emotional, he'd flip it and make it about me being dramatic. Something changed in his face. The softness was gone. He pushed his plate forward, not hard enough to knock anything over, but hard enough to make a point. You know what? Yeah, I was excited about the company. So what? Every girlfriend in the world helps her boyfriend get ahead. You're sitting on a gold mine and you won't even share it. There it was, out loud. He called my family's 40 years of work a gold mine and called me selfish for not handing him a piece. I leaned back and asked question 2. How many other companies did you apply to in the last 3 months? He blinked. I've applied to a few. Sent some emails. I said, name one. He waved his hand. I don't remember. I've been busy. I kept my eyes on him. Can you name a single company you applied to that doesn't have my last name on it? He went quiet. The silence told me everything. He sat there with his mouth open, eyes moving around the room like the name of some company would appear on the wall. He couldn't name one. one. There wasn't one. I told him Ludo had something interesting to share. When you showed up to the job site with lunch, you didn't just bring sandwiches. You gave Ludo a flash drive. His eyes flickered. Ludo plugged it in later. A whole portfolio. 6 reference letters. 5 of those 6 were from people Oren had met through my family, introduced at dinners and events. One was from a supplier who works directly with my uncle Andre, a man Oren never would have met if he hadn't walked through my front door first. His legs started bouncing under the table. I looked at him. You've been using every person in my life as a stepping stone and you thought none of them would talk to me? That's what got him up. He pushed his chair back and stood, hands on his hips. You're being dramatic. I'm ambitious. That's not a crime. His voice was loud now, not yelling, but close. I didn't stand up. I told him ambition has a shape to it. It looks like applying to 50 companies, getting rejected, and applying to 50 more. What you did was date me for access. That's not ambition. That's strategy. He flinched. He started pacing toward the counter and turning back like a dog on a short leash. I told him I'd talked to my cousin Ernie that morning. He stopped. I told him Ernie had things to share about the birthday party. The one Oren showed up to even though I'd said it was small. The one he came to without me. Ernie said Oren cornered him near the grill and started asking about permit contracts, how the company handled zoning approvals, whether they ever subcontracted to smaller firms. Ernie said Oren had a whole business plan he wanted to pitch at a birthday party, next to the grill while everyone else ate cake. The color left Oren's face, slow, like watching milk pour into coffee in reverse. Ernie misunderstood what I was saying. I said, did my dad misunderstand your resume too? The one where you mentioned my name 3 times? He didn't have an answer. He sat back down, hands over his face, rubbing hard. When he pulled them away, his eyes were red, not from crying, from pressure. He took a breath. Okay, fine. Yes, I saw an opportunity when I found out about your family, but that doesn't mean I don't care about you. Both things can be true. I nodded slowly. Maybe. That's what question 3 is going to figure out. I asked question 3. If I called my dad right now and told him to never hire you, not now, not ever, would you still want to be with me? I set my phone in the middle of the table between us. I'll do it right now. 1 call. The door closes forever. Just me. Regular me. The receptionist who pays her own rent. Are you staying for that girl? His eyes dropped to the phone. He stared at it like it was a loaded weapon. I waited. I waited for him to grab my hand. To say, of course, I love you regardless. The words didn't come. He looked up. Why would you do that? Why would you close a door that could help both of us? That's not fair. Both of us. He said both of us. Like my dad's company was a joint asset in a relationship that was 4 months old. My chest got tight. Not from anger. Some small stupid part of me wanted him to pass this one. The part that remembered sitting on a lawn chair at the cookout, laughing so hard my stomach hurt because Oren was doing impressions of people from his old job. The part that remembered him walking me to my car and saying he wanted to see me again. He kept going. You're testing me. It's manipulative. I said it wasn't a test. It's a yes or no question. Would you stay? He shook his head. That's not how relationships work. You don't ask someone to choose between loving you and having a future. Loving me and having a future. Like those were 2 separate things. I let it hang. You just told me the answer. You can't separate loving me from having a future at my dad's company. Those are the same thing to you. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. Then his shoulders dropped. His face softened. He leaned forward, slow. I'm sorry. I went about this the wrong way, but I really do care about you. Let me prove it. Give me 6 months. I won't mention the company once. Just you and me. For 5 seconds, I almost believed him. My brain knew better, but my heart was reaching for the version of him I wanted instead of the version sitting across from me. I thought about the small good things, the way he laughed at jokes that weren't funny, the way he remembered I hated cilantro and ordered around it without asking. The version of him I'd built in my head over 4 months was real to me, even if it had never been real to him. I started to pull my phone toward me. He relaxed, eyes hopeful. He nodded a little like we were turning a corner. Then my phone lit up, a text from Zoe, my best friend, the one person outside my family I trusted with all of this. I'd called her that morning and asked her to go through Oren's social media. Every profile, every post. Girl, he posted on a professional networking group 2 weeks ago asking if anyone had connections at your dad's company. I screenshotted it before he could delete it. Sending now. 2 weeks ago, while he was bringing me flowers and calling me babe and telling me he loved me, he was posting on the internet asking strangers to help him get into my family's company. I turned the phone toward him, held it up so he could see the message and the screenshot loading underneath. His own words, his own profile, dated 2 weeks ago. I watched the hope drain out of his eyes like water through a crack. I said, 6 months, huh? The look on his face wasn't guilt. It was panic. Plan caught from an angle he didn't see coming. He didn't know about Zoe. He thought the only evidence was with my dad and Ludo and Ernie. He was wrong. I had everything now. But before I could say what came next, Oren did something I did not see coming. He pulled out his phone and started tapping. I thought he was calling a ride. Then I heard the dial tone, on speaker. He set the phone on the table where mine had been a minute earlier. The name on the screen made my whole body go cold. He was calling my dad. I heard it ring. My dad picked up. Hello? Casual, like any other Friday night call. Oren sat up straight like he was in a job interview. Benedict, this is Oren. I'm sitting here with your daughter and she's trying to end things between us because I showed interest in the company. I need you to tell her there's nothing wrong with wanting to work hard for this family. I sat there frozen. I did not plan for this. I planned the dinner, the questions, the texts. I did not plan for him to call my father in the middle of my own apartment and try to use him as a character witness at a trial I was supposed to be running. I reached for the phone. He picked it up and held it out to his side, away from me, like a kid holding a toy over his sister's head. The line was quiet. 3 seconds that stretched out like taffy. Then my dad spoke. Oren, my daughter told me everything. She came to me before tonight. I saw your resume. I saw the cover letter. I know about the job site visits and the office drop-ins. You're a young man who wants opportunity, and I respect that. But you went through my daughter to get it, and you didn't even have the honesty to be upfront about it. His voice was calm, the way Benedict talks when he's already made up his mind. Oren leaned toward the phone. Sir, that's not what happened. I genuinely care about your daughter. The company was just a bonus. He said it fast. My dad answered, if she was just a bonus, you wouldn't have put her name in your cover letter 3 times. You didn't apply to work for me. You applied to date your way in, and my daughter figured it out before any of us did. I'm proud of her for that. My eyes stung. I didn't expect that. Not like that. Not on speaker. I pressed my lips together hard because I was not going to cry in front of Oren. He tried one more time. Voice low, serious. Benedict, man to man, give me a shot. 1 interview. If I'm not qualified, fine, but at least let me earn it. My dad was quiet for a beat, long enough for Oren to think maybe it worked. Then, son, you had months to earn it through the front door. You chose the side door. The answer is no. And I'd like you to stop coming to my home when my daughter isn't there. Good night. The line went dead. Oren stared at the phone. His jaw was working. His hand hovered like part of him was thinking about calling back. He didn't. He sat with the dead phone in his hand for a long beat, looked at it like it might ring back on its own. It didn't. Even Oren knew you don't call a man back after he tells you goodnight in that voice. He slid the phone into his pocket and looked at me. His eyes were wet, not with sadness, with something hotter, something that looked like blame. You turned your whole family against me. I kept my voice even. No, you showed up to every room in my family's life with an agenda, and they all noticed on their own. I just confirmed it. That was the truth. I didn't have to convince my dad. He had the resume. I didn't have to convince Ludo. He had the flash drive. I didn't have to convince Ernie. He had the birthday party. Every single person in my family saw it independently. All I did was connect the dots out loud. The call to my dad was supposed to be his life raft. It was supposed to flip the whole thing back on me and make me look like the unreasonable one. Instead, my dad said he was proud of me and told Oren to stop coming to the house. Every exit was closed. Every angle was played. Every person he tried to use as a ladder had already stepped away. I stood up, told him I was going to say a few things, and then he was going to leave. He looked up but didn't move. I told him that when we met at the cookout, I really liked him. He made me laugh. He asked real questions. For 2 months, he was someone I was excited to see. And then you walked into my parents' driveway and saw a name on a truck, and I became a door instead of a person. He cut me off. That's not fair. You can't reduce everything we had to one moment. I held up my hand, flat, palm out, like a stop sign. He stopped. I'm not reducing it. You are. Because after that one moment, every single thing you did was about the company. The flowers, the phone calls, the I love you that showed up 6 days after dinner. You didn't fall for me, Oren. You fell for my last name. And the worst part is you thought I was too dumb to notice. That was the piece that hurt the most. Not that he used me. People use people all the time, and it's ugly, but it happens. What burned was that he looked at me every day and decided I was someone who wouldn't figure it out. He saw a woman who worked a regular job and lived in a small apartment, and he thought that meant I was simple. He confused humble with stupid, and that was his mistake. He pushed up from his chair. So, what was tonight? A trap? You cooked me dinner just to humiliate me? His voice cracked on humiliate. Like that was the part that bothered him. Not that he lied. Not that he used every person in my life as a stepping stone. Not that he posted online asking strangers for connections to my family's company while telling me he loved me. The part that bothered him was getting caught in a way he couldn't spin. I told him the truth. No, I cooked you dinner to give you a chance. 3 chances, actually. I asked if you'd be here without the company. You couldn't say yes. I asked you to name one place you applied that wasn't connected to my family. You couldn't. I asked if you'd stay if the door closed forever. And you called my dad to pry it back open. I let it land. You failed every single question, Oren. Not because I set you up, because you told the truth for the first time tonight. He grabbed his jacket off the back of the chair, shoved his arms through the sleeves like the jacket had done something wrong too. He looked at me, voice low and mean. You're going to regret this. You're going to be sitting here alone in this little apartment, working your little reception job, while your family builds something without you. Little apartment, little reception job. I didn't flinch. My world doesn't have a job title attached to it. That's the part you never understood. He stared at me, waiting for me to take it back, or cry, or ask him to stay. I just stood there, both feet on my own floor in my own apartment that I pay for with my own little job. He turned and walked to the door, hand on the handle. Then he turned back one more time. The anger was gone. For just a second, he looked like the guy at the cookout, the one who made me laugh until my sides hurt. For what it's worth, I did like you at the cookout. I believed him. That was the one thing he said all night that I actually believed. I said, I know, that's the part that makes this sad instead of just stupid. He turned and walked out. I closed the door and turned the lock. Stood there for a minute with my forehead almost touching the wood. The apartment was so quiet I could hear the faucet dripping, the hum of the fridge, my own breathing. It was over. I walked back to the table and sat down. His chair was still pulled out. His plate still had food on it going cold. His napkin crumpled on the table. 2 plates, 2 glasses of water. One mine, one belonging to someone who was never really here. The candle I'd lit was still burning. The cheap one from the grocery store that smelled like vanilla. My phone buzzed. Ludo. Dad told me what happened. You good? Dad had called Ludo right after he hung up on Oren. My family was already circling, already checking in. Not because I asked them to, because that's what they do. I typed back, yeah, I'm good. And I meant it. I wasn't great. I wasn't happy, but I was good. I was clear and steady and sitting in my own apartment that I paid for with my own job, and nobody at this table owed anybody anything. I picked up my fork. The food was still warm enough. I took a bite and chewed slowly, looking at the empty chair across from me. The apartment was quiet. No one was talking about project management or business plans or cover letters. No one was trying to charm their way into anything. It was just me, eating a meal I made with my own hands. The candle was burning down toward the holder. The faucet was still dripping in the other room. The fridge clicked off and the apartment got even quieter. And for the first time in months, that felt right.